Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a double dose of gameplay and probably my favourite tier 8 premium tank in the game at the moment. That's the Mutz, this German vehicle. I just absolutely love how well rounded it is. But more on that through this double dose of gameplay. This video is also going to be focused on trying to maximise both your credits and also your experience in World of Tanks. Now, why would you want to maximize your experience? Well, obviously, the more experience you get, the more that your crews are going to be trained, and also that allows you to progress through to other vehicles faster, right? That's what I guess you're trying to maximize your experience for. There's also another reason to try and maximize your experience, and that's if you're trying to go for an ace tanker, where you finish in the top 1%, I believe, of experience that people got in the previous, I think it's week or two. Not quite sure on that one, should probably know that. But really, all it comes down to is just having a big experience game to get your ace tanker, and then to feel all good about yourself seeing that nice little ace badge in the garage. Yay. So how can you maximize your experience in World of Tanks? Well, there's kind of three ways. One is maximize your damage. Well, actually, there's a few more than three, actually, thinking about it. You can spot targets, you can damage targets, and I should clarify that with the spotting, there's the initial spot, and then there's also spotting damage or assistance damage in World of Tanks, which also is the same as if you track your targets. So let's think about it over again, now that we've thought it through, right? So spotting, you get some experience for the initial spot, and then you can get experience from spotting the target to enabling your allies to do damage. That's very useful as well. Then, of course, you can do damage yourself. And then there's another huge one, which is actually killing the target. And also, with the assistance damage with spotting, you can also track the target to have the same effect. And so what this means is that a larger part of this comes down to being able to spot the enemy tanks. As you saw at the start of this game, we picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 spots there on tanks. Possibly 6, considering that 6 of the enemy vehicles have been spotted now. And that will have given us a nice little bonus to our experience at the start, as we're going to see in the post-game stats. Unfortunately, those spots weren't really ever going to be useful to enable my team to do assistance damage. However, spotting that KV-85 there will definitely help. And then what it comes down to is just doing as much damage as you can. And I guess one of the other things that we should talk about is, what's better? Doing a maximum damage roll, or should we say an average damage roll, just to not confuse. So for this gun, the average is 240. So what's better, doing 240 damage to a Panther M10, or will it be better to try and focus and kill a tank that's maybe on 1 health? Well, I found that really the experience is very heavily skewed towards kills. Generally, people only get ace tankers if either they've done a tremendous amount of damage in spotting, or they've done a reasonable amount of damage in spotting but picked up a large number of kills, because either they've got lucky, or I guess maybe they've tried to target down the enemy vehicles that were on low health. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with trying to take out tanks which are low health. By taking them out the game, you're reducing their combat effectiveness completely. Whereas if there's a tank that's on 1 health on the enemy team, he's just as dangerous until you take him out as a tank that's on 100% health. That's something that's very important to think of if you're doing strongholds, tank companies, you know, the clan wars. But I'm sure if you're at that level, that's very basic information. And so right now, I'm trying to just dish out as much damage as I can. But back to what we were talking about, the idea of what's better to pick up, damage or kills. Well, really, if you're just trying to go for your ace tanker, then it's probably best if you try and kill steal a little bit, frankly. It's not something that I would ever encourage in World of Tanks. It's pretty filthy to try and wait for a tank to be on low health. And that also defeats the point a bit. If you think, I'm just going to wait until he's on low health and then kill him, you're probably not going to get anywhere. But you can kind of use it to your knowledge that maybe if there's just you and another tank that's assaulting a vehicle, that perhaps you might want to wait for that player to shoot him before you finish him off. That's something that I would only ever really do if I'm either going for a Top Gun or a Radley Walters medal. But then again, there is the argument that even that's a bit lame, considering that, you know, Top Guns and Radley Walters medals should be earned, right? But I think people might go a little bit easy on someone trying for picking up that 8th kill. And so what I'm trying to also suggest is that there's another way to play the game, I guess, is that marks of excellence. And so thinking about deciding whether you should try and secure a kill or do damage for marks of excellence is completely different. Kill stealing for marks of excellence is useless. You just want to do large amounts of damage. So if you're sitting there in your Jagdpanzer 100 and you're very close to your third mark of excellence, should you shoot that enemy tank that's on 10 health and secure his life? Or should you shoot at the mouse that's still on half his hit points that you're almost guaranteed to do 1,050 average damage to him? Well, that one's a bit more clear. You shouldn't really try and finish off low health targets when it comes down to mark of excellence. One of the key suggestions that I can give to anyone is to try and maximize your view range. That really is one of the biggest differences between experienced players, at least in a specific tank, and inexperienced players. Look at this WZ-111. He's got his turret turned to us, but luckily we've got the rear of his tank with the hull armor. And so that should allow us to get some nice, easy shots in there. Oh, I just love the fact that this Mutz has 212mm of penetration with its standard rounds. You really don't need to fire APCR unless you're in a really bad matchup. So in this game, to be able to maximize our credits and our experience, we basically played very aggressively on the ridgeline. We've got a good camera rating and very good view range in the Mutz. We took advantage of the fact that we were top tier and that we would have better view range and camera rating than most of the enemy vehicles. And then we continued to play aggressively, just spotting a huge amount of vehicles here and hopefully getting some assistance damage that we will check out later in the post-game stats before we get stuck into some more gameplay. So a similar kind of matchup here. This time we're on Sand River defending against an assault, and I'm going to show you probably the best position to take if you're in any kind of a vehicle that has decent view range and good gun depression. And that's going to be the center. It's just ridiculously powerful on this map, and I don't think that this position will be along for very much longer before they'll have to nerf it. It's just far too easy to go to right here. You can spot deep through here, you can get shots across here, as we're going to see later on in the battle, and also poke up here and harass anyone that's trying to work the ridge. It's just a completely overpowered position that we are going to use to our advantage to be able to, again, maximize the amount of experience and credits that we're able to earn in this game of World of Tanks in our Mutz. So, hopefully, what I said during that last replay started to make sense. The idea that there are different ways to play World of Tanks, but I've got to try and think about what's most likely that you guys are going to be interested in. For the Mark of Excellence players, of course, that's maximizing your spotting and your damage, not your kills. And so you kind of want to probably use your team as meat shields a little bit. It sounds a bit harsh, but when you're just trying to maximize your spotting and your damage, remember, for Marks of Excellence, it doesn't really matter if you win or lose the game. That's playing the game to try and to get Marks of Excellence, I guess, rather than winning. Of course, when you're trying to win the game, sometimes it's very important that you put your tank in harm's way to be able to spot for your team, to try and target, you know, the most important vehicles on the enemy team that you think are going to be able to rip apart the rest of your allies. So from here, this IS-3 is going to poke round. He puts a good shot into the back of my tank. I left my German butt hang in there for him and the very weak side armor of the Mutz. I damaged my fuel tanks as well. That's not good. I quite often will repair my fuel tanks. A lot of people consider that to be a waste of a repair kit, but when you're using a premium consumable on a vehicle like this, if you see your fuel tanks go yellow at the start of the battle, recently I've been realizing that it's your fault if you get set on fire if you don't repair the fuel tanks. The way that fuel tanks work with getting set on fire is that when they go red, you burn. It's not like the engine. With the engine, any hit to your engine has a chance to be able to set your engine on fire. You can see it in the garage. With fuel tanks, it's not about them getting hit. They can go yellow and they're completely safe. But if they get hit again and then they go from yellow to red, then you are going to be one horrible smoldering wreck after a few seconds. I don't know what these guys are trying to do, trying to push through here. I can understand aggressive plays. Sometimes that'll work out, but I feel like this IS-3 was just far too open. There's no way that he can come around this corner, because as soon as he does, he gets nailed from over here. And I can just use the 10 degrees of gun depression this tank has to just pick apart my opponents. I wouldn't be surprised if actually I was the one spotting these fellows. Even though you see my dynamic view circle quite small here, this is a bug. For some reason it's not extending out. I don't know why it's doing that, but my crew skills are excellent in this vehicle, including the chocolate. I got brothers in arms. I think I've got situational awareness, possibly recon as well, on my very experienced German medium tank crew, and that will enable me to spot these guys and just pick them apart. Another thing that I should talk about, considering this video is also focused on maximizing your experience and your damage, is that if you are not spotting the enemy tank when you're shooting him, as far as I can tell, you're only getting about half of the experience from it. I've seen some absolutely gigantic games where players have done, you know, upwards 5, 7, even 10,000 damage, but their experience totals that they get out for them are actually rather low. I've got quite a few games in my tank destroyers where I haven't been spotting for myself, and even though I've done 6,000 to 7,000 damage, quite often I haven't got an ace tanker from it. And that's because if you sit between the maximum spotting distance and the maximum render distance, which is 445 and 564 meters, then you're not going to be able to see the target, and effectively you're relying on somebody to spot for you. And when somebody is spotting for you, you are sharing 50% of the experience that you generate through the damage with them. And so you should definitely take that into consideration when maybe you're trying to pick up ace tankers, or if you're trying to grind through your vehicles, is that it's very, very, very important to maximize your view range and also to be spotting your target to maximize your experience. Of course, if you're just going for credits, I think that it's also the same case. I think that the credits are shared between the person who is spotting and the person who is dealing the damage. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense in a way, would it? That's definitely something that I'm going to have a quick look at before the end of this video to clarify for you guys. So from here, we're just going to use the good mobility of the mutts. I didn't want to go all the way down in that ditch, because another way to maximize your experience and your damage is to keep flowing and keep moving, to read the map, to figure out where you need to go next. You need to know what you're going to do before you've done what you need to do to get there. That was a bit of a mouthful, right? So what I'm trying to say is that even before I'd killed that T-44, I was thinking about where I wanted to go next, and that was to hit this mid-ridge to be able to put pressure on the tanks towards the east, to maximize my damage, to maximize my experience, because that's what I guess you should try and do in World of Tanks, right? That's progression. It's your crew skills. It's your credit income. For me, that's one of the big parts of the game. So you'll see that I actually repair my fuel tank towards the end of this game because I'm worried about getting set on fire. A bit of a useless repair kit there, possibly. But just to touch on it again, always be thinking where you will need to go next after you've killed the target. It's like a big game of chess, you know. You've got to be thinking a game. You've got to be thinking a game. If you could think a game ahead, that would be amazing. No, you've got to be thinking a move or two ahead before you've finished what you're doing, so then you don't have any downtime and you can get on to get the most out of each round of World of Tanks as possible. And yes, I just took a quick look at the Wargaming wiki, and when you damage enemies that your team is spotting but not yourself, you're getting 50% of the experience and only 50% of the credits. And there's only really a couple more tips that I can give, and that's that damaging vehicles that are higher tier than your target is more beneficial, at least with regards to your experience income. So a tier 8 tank shooting a tier 10 tank is going to get far more experience than a tier 8 tank shooting a tier 6 tank like you've seen in some of these replays. But as far as I can tell, if credits is what you're after, then there's no benefit to shooting higher tier targets. You should just try and maximize your damage. Anyway, let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats to see what we were able to earn in the MUTs in both of these replays. So this was 4,568 experience for our double, 131,000 credits, and that was in a game that was under 6 minutes long. That's 118,000 credits profit as we didn't have to fire any premium rounds, and a decent amount of crew training for our German medium tank crew. So what really enabled us to do this? Well, we got a patrol duty medal because we did a significant amount of spotting for our team, 2,711 on a bunch of separate targets. We also got a scout medal because we spotted at least 9 of the 15 tanks on the enemy team, and while we didn't pick up many kills considering we did 3,705 damage, we got a Confederate, meaning we hit a lot of different tanks. But that isn't really useful. I would have rather got a Top Gun if we were trying to maximize our experience. Nevertheless, 118,000 credits in under 6 minutes is just why I love playing my premium sometimes. And the second MUTs game was even better because this win happened during when I had the ultimate MUTs package. Big thank you to Duncan for that, who sent it to me. So we were able to get 12,000 experience for our 5 times event, as well as over 132,000 credits. That's 128,000 credits profit in just over 6 minutes. The reason why we got so much in this game is because we took an aggressive position at the front where we'll be able to spot for ourselves because there was no assistance damage in this game, and picked up a lot of free damage on the side of that T-32. Gosh, did we really shoot him 8 times, 1,550 to that poor fellow. And just kept moving, which enabled us to pick up the top gun. And that really is my key recommendation about how to make a ridiculous amount of experience and credits very quickly. Focus on maximizing the view range of your tank, take an aggressive position, and do everything that you can to survive and hopefully take down the victory. So I'm not entirely sure whether you guys are going to like this video, but I really wanted to give you a few tips and tricks as to how you can maximize what you get from the shortest possible time in the game. But if you did enjoy it, let me know in the comments down below, and especially if you think that I've missed anything out. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.